I have two stolen body theories. The disciples did it, or somebody else besides anybody else besides the disciples did it. Which one you want to use?
Let's do disciples. Disciples stole.
Disciples did it, or somebody else did it. Now, when somebody wants to debate me, but they're not really sure a lot about the resurrection, they're not. I'm at a university, and somebody stands up during the Q&A and challenges me. I get more people that say the disciples stole the body than any other theory. And according to most scholars, it's the worst of all the theories. I would tell the guy this from the get-go. I would say nobody memorable has held that the disciples stole the body since a guy named Herman Samuel Reimarus in the 1700s. It was about 1760. He held the disciples stole the body. And before him was a man about 40 years earlier who believed the disciples stole the body. But you can't find anybody who takes this view. Why? Because it's silly. And here's some problems. So if I were talking to this guy, I wouldn't even quote any verses to him. I would just say, do you believe Jesus had disciples? Yeah. Do you think, we don't know what happened to all of them, but do you believe the ancient sources that tell us, Josephus, for example, do you believe the sources that tell us a few of these disciples died as martyrs? Yeah, I've heard that. Okay. Josephus says James, the brother of Jesus, was stoned to death. And that's in the first century. That's a first century source for the martyrdom of James. We have another first century writer who tells us about the martyrdom of Peter and Paul. So all you have, Peter, Paul, and James, we have their martyrdoms recorded in the first century. And these are without opening up the New Testament. Don't even open up the New Testament. You can find the first one in Josephus, and the other two are in a guy named Clement, who writes about 95 AD, same time as the Gospel of James. They all say they died as martyrs. Now, would you ever do something and then lie about it? This view is often called the fraud theory because it's faked. It's a fake. They stole the body and then they lied about the appearances. Would you ever do that? Why? Well, would you die for a lie? Would you die for a joke you played on your friend?
Nope.
Would you give the rest of your life? Would you minister for decades? Leave your family behind, leave your business. Peter was a fisherman. Paul was an Old Testament scholar, a Pharisee. James was the pastor of the Church of Jerusalem. Would you leave your job like Peter and Paul?
Nope.
No. And what happened? There is a case in history, a guy named Sabbatai Sevi. He's the best-known messianic pretender besides Jesus. And when the Muslims caught him hundreds of years later, they threatened him and said, give up your faith or we're going to kill you. He said he was the Messiah. They said, give up your faith or we're going to kill you. He gave up his. That's a real historical. Now I want to know, Paul, Peter, and James, the brother of Jesus, how come